Hello, my name is Anne Teato and welcome to episode 94 of the Psychic Matters podcast. Since we last spoke, I've been to the Barbanell Centre in Stafford, UK to sit my CSNUT exam with the Spiritualists National Union. It meant, of course, spending a weekend in the wonderful company of my fellow trainee tutors and spiritualist mediums, and the CSNUT is a teaching exam, which meant that after my homework review and 30-minute interview, I did a full day's teaching, and for each section of the day, I was watched and assessed by an assessor. I was teaching attunement, actually, how to appreciate the magnificence and power of your own soul and how to attune to the energy and frequency of the spirit world. It was such a great day and I really enjoyed it. So now I'm just waiting for the result and I will let you know just as soon as it comes through the door. If all has gone well, and fingers crossed it has, then it means I'm another step forward in my path to being a tutor at the world-renowned Arthur Findlay College. But as I say, I'm still waiting for the results. So let's see what happens, folks. Let's see what happens. Hopefully I get the result in a week or so. Meanwhile, I wonder if I could ask you all a favour. Do you think you could go to this website? Ready? podcastawards.com. If you could go there now, podcastawards.com, and vote for Psychic Matters in the People's Choice Podcast Awards, I would be so grateful to you. Yep, it's that time of year again when I ask for your vote, and it is in the spirit of these particular podcast awards that we ask and work with our audiences to ask them to vote for us. So if you would like to do that for me, that would be just brilliant. If you really love Psychic Matters, you love the episodes that have come out so far, you love the advice that you're getting from the experts that I've interviewed worldwide, if you love the teaching from me that's on there as well, or just love anything about Psychic Matters, then please do consider voting for me in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. So go to the website, podcastawards.com, and you'll see that I'm listed under one category this year, religion and spirituality. So if you could cast your vote there, I would be hugely appreciative. Thank you so very much. Meanwhile, back in the studio, I've been speaking to a fellow medium who hosts his own incredible podcast, and I've been speaking to him about his unique journey into mediumship. Get a cup of something delicious and relax. I know you're going to love this episode. Today, I am joined in the studio by Evidential psychic medium and fabulous podcast host, Jeffrey Peck. Jeffrey, welcome to Psychic Matters.
Thank you, Anne. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, it's brilliant to have you. Thank you so much for coming on. And I know that my listeners are going to get such a lot out of this interview chat that we're going to have together. So let's kick off, Jeffrey. Let's kick off. Tell us a little bit about you. So you are an evidential medium, but where did this begin for you? Because I know this began slightly later in your lifetime. Tell us about those first beginnings.
So I didn't experience this from the crib or in childhood or in young adulthood. Looking back, I can see that I was very sensitive. I was always an extreme dreamer, very vivid dreams. And occasionally I would have premonitions or prophetic dreams, But in 2006, November 11th, to be exact, I became attuned to the Reiki energy. And it was one of those things where my mother, my grandmother, they both had been living with osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, fibromyalgia. I mean, this horrible conditions where nothing worked for them. Pain pills, treatments, procedures, whatever. Nothing took their pain away. And I just happened to go to a spa one day for a massage. And the lady says to me, as she's worked on me for about 15 minutes, she says, I have a feeling I'm supposed to do Reiki with you. And I said, oh, what's Reiki? And so she explains it to me. And I said, okay, sure, do it. And she started doing it. And I felt these waves of heat going from my head through my body. It felt like there were 10,000 butterflies flapping their wings really close to my skin. I would, with my eyes closed, I would have these sensations and visions of bright white light in waves as she was doing this. And I was completely gobsmacked. I mean, just like, wow, what is happening? So I had never heard of Reiki. I had to have her spell it 3 times so I could remember it. And she said, any of us can do this. And I said, oh, I immediately left, got home to the Google, and I Googled, Reiki master near me. And I found a lady in my vicinity. And November 11th, I went to her place for a weekend, and my life completely changed. And it was interesting because she even said to me at the very beginning, she says, if you're happy with your life right now, you might want to rethink this, because this is going to completely change your life. And I said, okay, I'm good. Let's do it,
Yeah.
And it did. It absolutely changed my life in every way, shape, and form. I didn't know about the clairs. I didn't know about psychic work. I've never spoken with a medium, although I was incredibly attracted to all of that. Everything, James Van Praagh, John Edward, the show Medium with Patricia Arquette. I mean, it was always something that I was so attracted to. And what I didn't know was that the side effect for me in becoming attuned with the Reiki was the ignition of all of the psychic senses. And at the end of that weekend, my Reiki master asked me to sit with myself for an hour every day for the first 30 days and give myself Reiki treatment. All of the hand positions all the way around, And she said, I want you to learn from the energy. I want the energy to teach you. I want you to feel it. I want you to really start to grasp what it's doing, what it's teaching you, what it's meaning. And okay, so I did. And in the first 2 weeks, I would take myself in my walk-in closet and I would sit down in there. It was dark. I would take maybe some oracle cards and some crystals and an incense maybe. And yeah, I started to have these visions. I started to see beings in my mind's eye. I started to see what looked like memories, and they felt like memories, but they weren't my memories. I started to feel the external sensation of spirit around me. I thought I was losing my mind. I mean, I thought I was really losing it. I knew I was. Every day I would come out and go, I know I wasn't dreaming. I was sitting upright. There's no way I fell asleep. There was no way I was dreaming. And after about 2 weeks of that, I said to my Reiki master, I told her what was happening. And she just smiles and she said, you're opening up to spirit. And I said, oh, what's that mean?
Yeah.
So what happens now? She said, you're going to be a huge channel one day. And I said, no, I'm not. She said, oh, yeah, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. But in 2006, and my only understanding of channel was Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, the trance channel, the conscious channel or whatever she is. You know what I mean? She's conscious, but semi-conscious.
Yeah.
So that was my understanding. But I mean, now looking back, I understand channel much differently. And she laughed and she said, you need to change your definition of the word channel. So that's how it opened up for me. And I was 36 and I started doing Reiki treatments with people. And in those treatments, I started to sense people with us in the room. And I knew who they were. I didn't know how I knew this, but I knew who they were. It was your father. It was your mother. It was your grandmother. And I started to feel like I had to say something my Reiki master taught me not to say anything. That's how they did it in the old days. It was strictly about the energy and let the energy do what the energy is supposed to do. But I felt like I needed to. I was just really feeling the nudge. It's time to open your mouth, So I would ask them, are you okay if I start talking? Because I feel like I need to. And they all were very open and receptive. And suddenly I'm delivering evidential mediumship in the way that we are taught at Arthur Findlay. Before I even knew what I was doing, before I even understood it, it was just spontaneous. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that was in 2006. And that's when it all started to happen. In 2019, I made my way to Arthur Findlay. And that's where, again, for the second time, my life completely changed in the most amazing way possible.
It's just amazing that you came to this through Reiki. That fascinates me. That does. It really does. What a beautiful way to be opened up to the spirit world. So
yeah,
after you go to the Arthur Findlay College in 2019, you say your life changed again radically. Why was that, Jeffrey?
Well, I worked a job, my last Muggle job, from 2010 to the end of 2018. So for 9 years. Through that Muggle job, about 2015, spirit started to nudge me again. And suddenly I was ravenous for all things spirit. I couldn't read enough books. If there was a medium out there that wrote a book, I ended up having it in my living room.
Yeah, I hear you.
I read everything. I watched everything. That's when the podcast really started to. I'd been listening to podcasts since old Hay House radio days in 2007, 8, 9. But more and more people started to get out there in the mid-teens, So I was listening to all things spirit, all things mediumship, all things every day, all day. And I knew that when this job would be over, I knew that this is my direction I was being led. I knew this is where I was going. So my job ended at the end of 2018. 6 months later, in June, I was at Arthur Findlay. And I was terrified.
Why?
I get there. I'm a pretty good traveler. It doesn't make me nervous to be alone. I'm really secure with all of that. But I got there and I see all of these people. And I started to feel that insecurity, like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And the people that I met that first day, most of them had been there 3, 5, 7, or 19 times. It was just
I know. And they're all hugging each other. Oh, nice to see you. And you feel a little outsider. Yeah.
And I just felt like this teeny weeny fish amongst all these professionals, these big fish.
Of course.
Everybody was so wonderful. And that first day, Chris Drew, he wanted to speak with everybody for a few moments to kind of gauge where they were on their journey, where they are in their path, where they are. Are they a beginner? Are they an expert? Are they working professionally? Are they, and I sat with him and I said, listen, I don't care what group you put me in. You put me in wherever spirit tells you to put me, because I just started practicing 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I had been doing it 15 years ago, but I went face first consciously into the mediumship only 3 months before that. So he sorted everybody out and he ended up putting me with the experts, his group. And he explained to us that day. He said, do y'all know what a water baby is? And everybody just kind of looked around. There's 15 of us in our little group in the sanctuary at Arthur Findlay. And we all kind of shook our heads. And he says, water babies are the infants that their mothers get in the water with them. And they just toss them in. And the little baby is instinctually knows what to do. They just flip upside right. And they start breathing and they start splashing and they're okay. They're totally fine. Right. And he said, that's what Jeff is. Jeff is our water baby because he is instinctually connected, and we are going to show him and teach him so that he can understand what's happening. And that's when I truly learned how the clairs work within myself. That's how I truly learned how to communicate and express what I was receiving. And I'll never forget, because that first day, the very first exercise, Chris asked us to find a partner, as they do. And we find a partner, and he says, okay, choose who's going to be the medium and who's going to be the sitter. Okay. And the gal that I was with wanted me to go first. And I was like, well, okay, I guess that's why I'm here, right?
Yeah.
Let's jump in the deep
Just
end.
got to go on and do it. Yep.
And he says, mediums, close your eyes. We closed our eyes. And then he said, now, sitters, get up and find yourself a new medium. Mediums, keep your eyes closed. And he explained this. He said, although you guys might feel like you're not judging your situation, he said, we are all judging whoever we have in front of us. It's an unconscious, if you have a mother that looks like she could be 40 or 50, you might prejudge and think she probably has kids, or she probably, you know what I mean? Those kind of thoughts that go through our minds. So he said, I want you to not even know. He said, sitters, remain silent. Do not give them any inkling of your gender. So we all get situated. And then he says, your last piece of instruction, sitters, you will not give any validation. You will not use your voice. You will sit there and take notes. Mediums, give what you get. And I was like, wow, truly blind, right?
Yeah.
And the experiences that I had had throughout the years, I was absolutely fascinated with the reality of this. And I had hoped one day that I would be one of those people that would wear the little brain cap, electromagnetic brain cap, so that I could show them how real this is, right?
Yeah.
And it was Carrie Alderuccio, and her son came through. And I mean, almost everything I said was bang on.
Wow.
I came out of it, and Carrie had tears rolling down her face, and she was frantically taking notes. And I was just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And she's crying, and then I start crying. It was so moving.
Yes.
And it changed everything for me. I mean, it showed me, even though I already knew that this reality was truth and real, it showed me in ways that I had yet to experience. So, and that was just the beginning of that 2-week stay at Arthur Findlay.
Oh, Jeff, what a fantastic story. And you needed that evidence for yourself as well.
Totally.
And what a beautiful message for Kerry as well.
Yeah.
But beautiful, especially because you didn't know who was sitting in front of you. You didn't know whether that was a male or a female. You had no visual clues whatsoever. Therefore, you can trust spirit. So it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Ooh, Jeff, how fabulous. So listen, I want to go back more into this in a moment, but I want to go back for a second, because you said that you had a job before you became a full-time psychic and medium, as most of us have a backstory and things that we did before. What was that job? What did you do?
Oh my gosh, Anne, so many things. I tried to go to college after high school. I went because all my friends were going, but I had no idea what I was there for. I had no clue. I tried over and over and over, and I just ended up not being able to finish, not even to complete, because I just was I felt purposeless.
What were you studying?
General, just liberal arts. I didn't know what I wanted to study. So I was just going with all the general stuff, the basic English, math, science, the general things that you have to get out of the way, right?
Sure.
So in the 90s, I worked for airlines. I was flight attendant in the late 90s. In the 2000s, from 99 to 2009, I was working mortgages in real estate. And that was so against my grain. I had extreme anxiety in all of that. And then when the 2008 crash happened, the universe cleared out all that which no longer worked for me. I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost my car. I lost my 11-year relationship. I lost my career in everything. And I went to Maui for 8 months to recover. I cried every day.
Yes.
Now, this is when spirit was really starting to become super active with myself. And I was doing Reiki treatments for people and readings, card readings, tarot readings. And then in 2010 to 2019, I was a personal assistant for a wealthy couple who lived in this Bay Area during the summer and in the desert in Arizona in the winter. And that last stint really set me up to be able to move forward without financial fear and to just to go for it, right? But a friend of mine who was really affected after the 2008 global crash, somewhere around 2015, she had been struggling, trying to find her way, trying to find a new career, create a new company, anything. And she said she just was really struggling and said, I just feel like such a has-been. And I said, I understand that. I totally understand that because I feel like a never been. And now that this spirit has shifted my awareness in such a huge way, I feel my purpose for the first time in a way that is like so deeply ingrained from the very core of who I am.
Yeah. And when you think back to your much younger years as a child growing up, do you think, because that call was so strong in you then, do you think you always had a call of some sort but hadn't really understood it or not?
You mean a call towards spirit?
Yeah, like were you aware of spirit as a child? Were you psychic as a child? Anything like that?
No. I mean, I would have premonition in dreams. My dreams were very vivid. In 1991, I think it was 91, maybe 92, early 90s, I'm going to say, the book, The Celestine Prophecy, made its way to my consciousness. And I read it like 10 times. So there was this calling. There was this something in the air. Didn't understand what it was, but there was this calling.
Yeah, I understand that because in my early 20s, it was this theatre company that I became a part of, and people were very sort of spiritual there. They were into Buddhism and things like that. And that's when I suddenly woke up. Oh, hold on, there's something here for me. I wasn't sure what it was as well. So I totally understand that. Yeah, interesting. So it's always been there. So fast forward then. So you lost everything. I mean, let's not fast forward yet. Let's go back to the trauma.
Oh, man. Yeah.
We won't dwell there. Trauma's done, right? But if you've been through a situation in your life, or anybody listening's been through a terrible trauma, because a lot of mediums have been actually.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How does that inform the work that you do now? That trauma that you've had to live through?
For me, trauma was always in my life. Growing up gay in the 80s was traumatic in itself.
Right.
Feeling not worthy, feeling not enough, feeling unlovable. In 1995, I tried to end my life. And I was a server at TGI Fridays out here in Minnesota. And it was dead of winter, 1:00 in the morning after the night shift. And I was driving home in this full whiteout conditions. And I was just sobbing. I couldn't see through my own tears, let alone the whiteout. And I had just hit that point of pure despair where in my rational mind, people would be better off without me because I'm just going to be a disappointment for everybody. I was trying so hard to be straight and it wasn't happening. So I tried to run my car into a light pole in the middle of the night. And before I hit that light pole, my car swerved. So I think like rationally, reasonably, I probably hit a patch of ice synchronistically.
Yeah.
But it happened so fast. It felt like a hand came out of the sky and just turned my car away from the pole. Like, no, something else to do. So after that, I had realized what I had almost done and just lost it. Within 2 months, I had come out to everybody. I sat on my floor, made phone call one after another. Boom, 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 boom. Because I couldn't take the pain any longer, and I just thought, well, if you're not going to be with me in life, that's not about me anymore.
Yeah.
So I got through that trauma. And then, of course, the trauma in 2008, losing everything. Trauma for me really opened me up in a way that set myself capable of holding this space of compassion in such a way that I no longer judged anybody in their path for whatever they might be doing or making mistakes along the way or addiction or whatever. It opened me up in such a way that I was able to witness. If I were in their shoes and I had experienced everything the same way they had, lived their traumas the same way they had, who's to say I wouldn't be making the same choices? So living through these choices set me up on my insides for this spirit work where I can feel and touch into all that which these people have gone through. Specifically, and I get a lot of trauma. I get a lot of abuse that people in spirit are coming through and they want to apologize, deeply apologize and acknowledge the pain that they brought for the people in front of me. And I know that pain. I lived with it. I know I get a lot of people who take responsibility for crossing over. I know what despair feels like. I was there. So yeah, that's what the trauma had led for me to grow within and see people through the lens of compassion.
Thank you for sharing those very intimate stories with us, Jeffrey. It's extraordinary to think any person has had to live through all of those things, but in a way it's a gift. It must be such a gift to your work now, like you say, because you're so able to hold those who are suffering and heal them either through Reiki, we'll come on to that, whether you're still doing that, or most certainly through your work as a spiritual medium.
Yeah.
So on that line, are you also doing Reiki these days too, or is that part of your work? Or
So yes, Reiki for me, I mean, I live with it. I live with it daily. I am blasting myself all day, every day, my food, my drinks, my animals, my partner. If anybody in my world wants a treatment, I'll bring them over and put them on my table. People on the streets, if somebody's broken down on the side of the road, I'll send them Reiki. If I see animals that have been run over by a car out on the highways and freeways, I blast them. I hit people in grocery stores that I walk by and I feel that they might need a little bit of juju, So yeah, I love the Reiki.
Oh, that's really beautiful. But so nice. And it's so much a part of your life. That's the thing. It's not been, I do that sometimes. It's just an everyday thing. That's really beautiful. And so coming back then to your spiritual medium work. So we left you at the Arthur Findlay College. You just had this amazing experience. You obviously carried on there for the rest of that week. What else? Because I know you've studied under some beautiful mentors and tutors. Yes. So tell us about your experiences in your training days.
So yes, that first week I went for 2 weeks straight.
Wow. And that's big.
Oh, it is big. I mean, holy mackerel. Yes. By Wednesday of that second week, I was borderline fried.
I can understand.
Woo! Yeah. So it was Chris Drew and Lynn Probert, who I absolutely adore, and I still mentor with her throughout the years. So
she's just wonderful, isn't she?
Yeah.
I love Lynn Probert.
I do too. and then the second week was with Tony Stockwell, and it was just incredible. I came back from that and just really dove deep into development. And it took me about, I'm going to say 2 years of nonstop practice with volunteers. So many people that I met in England would say, hey, let us know if you need people, because we all know people. So I was just getting people from all over the globe, and in the UK and Europe and Australia. had a few people here in the United States that had been out there as well, but I was practicing nonstop for about 2 years. And then let me think, we're 2023. So about 2 years ago, I opened up my door and been doing readings. It was COVID, so I had no choice but to do everything on Zoom, which I find really interesting. For me, getting on Zoom, it was really the only way I knew. And the people that have been doing this for decades, who are doing it face-to-face, one-on-ones, in their little office or their home, they really struggle getting on the Zoom doing it. And that's all I knew. So I've done like maybe 3 face-to-face because Zoom has just become so convenient,
It's so convenient, isn't it? And the thing is, a lot of people still sort of say, oh, I want a face-to-face meeting. But it doesn't matter the spirit world or in the spirit world, whether you're talking to your client on Zoom or whether they're in front of you physically, spirit's exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you say, it's so much more convenient.
Oh, totally.
People don't have to travel, et cetera, et cetera. So that's brilliant. And you have this most beautiful website with all of your services on there. No, it's really, really stunning. But tell us as well, because you're a professional working medium. You have been now for quite some time. You've got some most amazing results, people coming to you from all over the world, booking your sittings. You've also got this amazing podcast called Something Super Spiritual. Tell us how that came about, Jeffrey, because you've got this wonderful passion. So it's fabulous that you started on this podcast. How did it come to be?
Thank you. So, all right. After I blew open in 2006, about 2007, 2008, in spite of the real estate starting to come down, that was my first starving period for everything spirit. I was in workshops. Every single spiritual workshop I could find, I was in. I lived in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area in Arizona. So I was in Sedona. I was there once or twice a month for the weekend. And I knew in 2007, 2008, that I was going to be on the radio. It was before podcasts were really a thing, so back then I knew it was radio. And so I started to write out, in my folder, this like outline of what I was going to do, what I was planning. And I wanted to have a radio show where I was interviewing all of these people from all over the world. Spirit had become such a passion from the very core. I just wanted to scream it from a mountaintop to anybody who was ready to listen, that the reality of this. And so I thought, okay, I know I'm going to be on the radio. So at the very top of my page, I drew a big line. I was like, this is what my show's going to be called. What's my show going to be called? And I thought about it. I mean, for months, I couldn't decide what my show was going to be called. So I filled in the blank. I said, okay, I know it's got to be something super spiritual. I don't know what it is yet, but it's got to be something super spiritual. So I wrote something super spiritual. And then months after that, it hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the name.
That's the name. It's such a brilliant name as well. It's fantastic. It's really, really cool. And you're doing really, really well with it. Your podcast is in the top 10% of the most popular shows globally out of 3,135,555 podcasts.
What?
You're in the top 10%. So that's such
amazing.
an achievement. Yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So Something Super Spiritual, everybody. Do go and listen to it. Where can people listen to it? On all podcast platforms?
Yes, people can listen to it basically anywhere a podcast platform is.
But I'll tell you something about it, Jeff. Sorry to cut you off there. Anywhere a podcast is, people, okay, that's how you can listen to it. But also, I want to say how stylishly you present your work. On YouTube, you've got a YouTube channel, have you not, for the podcast? And you have everything videoed. So you've not just got the audio part of your podcast like I have, but you've got the video as well. And it is stylish. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So, all the podcast platforms and YouTube. So when I started this, June 8th of last year, 2022, I had been pinged to go to YouTube. But I was already, feeling exposed and vulnerable just with the audio, right? So it took about 6 months for me to finally get onto YouTube. And I didn't realize that I don't typically care to watch videos because I'm so busy. Like I'm always busy doing something. So having my earbuds in and listening all day is very convenient for me. But a lot of people like to watch the interviews. I didn't realize that. So for 6 months, I had people saying, you really should get on YouTube. You really should get on YouTube. I was resisting, and I had my heels dug in. No, I'm not going to YouTube. And as Spirit has it, the nudges that we get from our guides, from our guardians, from our loved ones, you name it. One day in November of 2022, my brother texts me and he says, "Hey brother, you have to put your podcast on YouTube. I like it so much better to watch the conversations." And I was like, okay, I hear you, Spirit. Yep, I hear you. 3 days later, he texts me again, "Brother, you really got to put your stuff on YouTube. If you don't know how to do it, just tell me how to get access to all of your stuff and I'll figure out a way to do it for you." And I was like, ooh, I felt that. I'm like, okay, Spirit, all right, Evan, I feel you. And literally 2 days later on that Saturday, I woke up at 7 a.m. and I almost never reach for my phone to go to Facebook as soon as I open my eyes. I mean, almost never. And this day, as Spirit would have it, I opened my eyes, I reached for my phone, I went straight to Facebook. At the very top of my feed is my friend Savon Champel, who's a beautiful medium out of Los Angeles. His post at the very top says, "I don't know who needs to hear this, but you need to get on YouTube now. You need to stop hiding under the radar. People need to hear what you need to share." And I was like, oh, okay already. So, I mean, I got up, got myself right out of bed. I took care of the dogs and then I made myself some coffee. I sat here at my desk for 16 straight hours and just edited, posted for 16 straight hours. And that's how I got on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then I started the live, something super spiritual live just 3 weeks ago.
So tell us about Super Spiritual Live. This is fantastic. And that's very brave, going live. I find that.
Oh, yeah.
So brave. Tell us how it's going. I mean, it's only 3 weeks old. So it's in its infancy. It's got all its potential yet.
Yeah.
But
it really is so much fun. So this year, a friend of mine asked me in January, actually a couple of people, and again, Spirit nudging me, a couple of people asked me, "What are your goals for this year?" And I said, you know what, this year, my goal, I'm going to start getting on lives, other people's lives. I'm going to do my own live when I feel like training wheels are ready to come off,
Yeah.
And in February, March, my friend Kevin Lewis out of Vancouver has a beautiful live show, and he had me on with him a number of times. And I noticed how beautiful the YouTube community is. They are so warm and welcoming and compassionate and friendly and kind. And they all chat with each other in the chat rooms, and they're chatting with us. And I mean, it was so not what I was expecting.
Right.
And it was beautiful. So I was on February, March, April, quite a few shows, February, March, April, and May. And I thought, okay, you know what? I was on Kevin's show on May 25th. And at the very end, he says, "What do you want to share with everybody? Do you have anything coming up? Do you have any events you want to share?" And I said, well, it just flew out of my face. I said, well, I'll be starting something super spiritual live in June. And when I heard myself say it, I was like, I said, "And you're going to be with me on the first day because I need my training wheels." And he said, "Okay, I'll be with you."
Brilliant.
And it really has been beautiful. It's been 3 shows now, but I have people on that I truly love, respect, admire, honor. in their own rights as psychic mediums, teachers, mentors, tutors. I mean, you name it. And we've just been having these beautiful, super spiritual conversations that are teaching. At the same time, we're just telling stories. And I've had such beautiful feedback talking about just people learning by hearing our stories, by hearing our journey, how we grew through what traumas maybe, or just, through our own experiences, maybe divorce or illnesses or near-death experiences. So we have these really fun conversations for people. And then we do these little mini readings for people towards the end. And yeah. And I find it so fascinating because I have yet to do the mediumship on the lives, because it's multitasking already. While you're talking, you can do little, card readings. That's easy. And watch the chat, watch them validate through the chat.
Yes.
But it's a lot when you have a lot of people chatting.
Yes,
it's really
of
a lot.
course.
So doing the mediumship for me, I have yet to do that, because holding onto that link and following through with the person in front of me when there's
it's
when
too
there's
difficult.
100 people chatting. Yeah, it's just really difficult.
Because you need to move your conscious mind to one side.
Oh, totally.
And you can't do that if you have to keep using your conscious mind to press all the buttons.
Yes. So I have had spirit, as spirit does, nudging and nudging and nudging. This one day with Kevin, he said, "Do you want to do any mediumship today?" I said, No. I said, well, maybe the very end, maybe. So we get through our hour and a half. And at the very end, he has me choose a question. But when the chats are moving so fast, what I had aimed for had already moved as I was clicking, and I clicked on a mediumship question. Somebody that wanted to connect to their mother, say.
Right.
And I was like, oh, spirit. Okay. Holy cow.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. And I did. I was able to connect with her mother in that moment. And I was like, wow. And it happened to be at the very end. So it was the last question. So I still hadn't done it since then. This last week on my show, I had talked about spirit guides with Cheryl Murphy. I adore Cheryl Murphy. And somebody had asked for a message from their spirit guide. And so Cheryl's tuning in, Cheryl's talking. While she's talking, I'm tuning in. And I started to feel, I said, they're really trying to get a hold of you. They are really trying to get your attention. I said, I keep seeing this lamp flickering. They are really trying to get a hold of you. And then she posts in the comments, the lamp started flickering after my brother died. Oh. And I was like, oh, right, heaven. Okay, so the mediumship is definitely coming into it. And I figured out a way. What I'll do when I bring mediumship through on the lives, I will bring them on the screen with me. There's a link that we can provide for the people, and they can come on in the screen. Then I can tune in and focus on them and their spirit person, and without having to monitor chat, then I can just.
Yeah, brilliant. So you're finding the technical way, which will help you to do that work.
Yes.
Obviously you're being called to do.
Oh, yeah.
That's so brilliant. Super, super brilliant. So, Jeff, we have a few minutes left, but I just wanted to ask you, what are your plans? You're doing your Facebook Lives. You've got your podcast, of course, which you're building up so beautifully. What other plans do you have going forward for your work?
Other plans would be getting out to do gallery, in-person group readings.
Right. In San Francisco Bay Area or anywhere?
Yeah, well, anywhere. I mean, if the market called for it, I would go anywhere, Yeah. Yes. So getting that going. Workshops. I know eventually I'll be teaching, but not quite yet. I'm building my foundation right now. So yes, there will be teaching. There will be workshops. There will be traveling for that as well. And I'm just going to continue following Spirit's nudges, the way that I've been feeling them and hearing them and sensing them through others, such as yourself. And okay, heaven, I said to spirit years ago, I said, all right, you know what? Use me, use my voice. I'll be whatever you need me to be. And let's be clear, speaking in front of people has been my number one greatest fear in the history of my world.
You're kidding me. You're so good at it. How can it be a fear?
Thank you. No. Ooh. Yeah. So getting through that has been something.
That's really something, especially as you're now doing Facebook Lives or live shows on YouTube, etc.
Oh, yeah.
That's really something.
Getting through that has been its own. And then, the next thing, doing the mediumship in front of everybody. Yeah. That's my next thing.
Yeah.
But I know it's there. I know it's there.
Of course.
So I'm just like, okay, here we go. Close your eyes, count to 10 and go.
You're just brilliant because you're so passionate and you're so brave. You're fearless. You put yourself out there fearlessly, which I think is really wonderful. Spirit always has your back. Oh, that's just for those who are listening and not watching on the video. Jeffrey's got 2 tattoos all the way from elbow to wrist, which say fearlessly on one arm and surrender on the other arm. Fearlessly surrender. That's amazing.
That's my reminder every day.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're so good, honestly, at getting out and about and putting spirit first. I think that's the thing that's so interesting. And coming back to the channeling that you mentioned at the beginning, we talked a little bit about that. Are you channeling with spirit for information and guidance on your life, what you should do next? Are you literally sitting down to talk with them, or are you just waiting for the nudges and the signs to come from them?
Kind of both. I sit in meditation often. In my meditation, I take myself, for the last 20 years, in the early 2000s, I discovered hypnosis. So rather than going to a therapist, a conventional therapist, counselor, I would go to a hypnotherapist every week for probably more than 12 years. And I discovered past lives, and I discovered working through my own anxieties through the hypnosis. In one of my very early sessions, she walked me to what happens to be today my special place, my safe place. The visual is it's a bluff high above the beach and the ocean. And so I will go to that bluff, and down on the beach, my spirit team, everybody's waiting for me. So I hop down, and that's where I meet. And so in these meditations, I sit there with them and I feel the energy. I feel what I know I need to do without really consciously knowing what I need to do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like I feel it.
Yeah.
And then, through these synchronicities, how spirit gets a hold of us, through the synchronicities that happen that are just, 3 in a row. I mean, okay, I get it. I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm awake.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm always led that way.
Fabulous. Fantastic. Jeff, what do you have coming up? What do you want to share with the listeners today that you've got coming up, or that they can come if they want to have a private one-on-one with you? How would they go about doing that?
Thank you. You can reach me at my website, which is jeffreypeck.com. And right now I have the mediumship session on there, and I've got the gift certificate for your people for birthdays, Christmas gifts. I am in the process of creating other services, the psychic services, the soul appraisal, spiritual coaching and such. But please take a look at the podcast, Something Super Spiritual. It's found, Stitcher, Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it, Amazon, Audible, anywhere you listen to, where you get your podcasts, you can find Something Super Spiritual. But if you're visual and you would love to join us on the YouTubes, they're scheduled to be Fridays at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. However, that time will shift depending on whomever is with me and where they might be in the world. Like, and when I have you, it will probably be at 9 or 10 in the morning, so that we can coordinate with your 5 or 6 p.m. or whatever's convenient for you. So, but I want to keep them on the Friday. I've had some great feedback about people needing this kind of outlet at the end of the week, to really kind of like wrap up their week of work stress and whatever stress and lead them into their weekend with a little bit of good juju.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Excellent. Thank you. And I'll put all those links to your work in the show notes for this episode so people can pick those up. And of course, you're on Instagram. You've got a Facebook page. How would people get you there?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all at Jeffrey Peck Medium.
Perfect. That's easy peasy. Well, listen, Jeff, there's only so many hours in a day. And I know that you are filling every single hour that you possibly can at the moment with your spiritual work. So everything else, all your wonderful work that it will be unfolding, I'm sure will do so as and when you get enough time in the day to do that. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your knowledge with us today and just being so open and beautiful regarding all the work that you do. It's been really super fabulous talking to you. Thank you, Jeffrey Peck.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I just adore you. And I can't wait to see you face to face when we get back out to England. It could be sooner than later. I'll keep you posted.
Please, God, that would be amazing. Wonderful. Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much.
Jeffrey Peck. What a fantastic guy and a very, very talented medium. Don't forget to take a listen to his fabulous podcast called Something Super Spiritual and check out all of his social media platforms and his website for all the readings and events he has got coming up. As ever, show notes are available on my website, anteato.com, ANNTHEATO.com, and you can pick up all the links there that will lead you straight to Jeff's work along with a full transcript. If you haven't already done so, please don't forget to vote for the Psychic Matters podcast in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Go to podcastawards.com and vote in the category of religion and spirituality. I will be so grateful to you. Meanwhile, I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another fascinating episode for you. My name is Anne Teato, and thank you so much for listening to Psychic Matters.